Hi, I'm John Twist of University Motors. Today, since we have an MGC up on the hoist, let me point out some of the interesting things about the MGC front suspension that make it different from an MGB. Now, you know the MGC is a 6-cylinder version of the MGB, and it was created to take the place of the Austin Healey 3000, which was taken out of production at the end of 1967, rather than go through a great big redesign change to meet the safety specs. They'd used that same body style on the big Healey basically from 54 through 67. They didn't want to redesign. The MGB was a lot newer, so it was worth redesigning to meet the safety specs. The MGB was, but the Healey wasn't, and therefore they came out with the MGC. Now this is the MGC front suspension here. We've got a bottom wishbone, although the wishbone isn't very wide. It's very much narrower than the MGB. But on the back side, we have an arm that keeps this from pitching fore and aft. Okay, so it holds it so it can move relatively straight up and down. We no longer have the lever shocks here. We've got a tube type shock here, like an American tube type shock. And up here at the top, we have our dual wishbone, well, single wishbone, but dual arm, not unlike the bottom of an MGB front suspension. Our sway bar, a relatively large diameter bar, it looks like about 7/8, although I'm not really sure, is connected to the top arm, whereas on the MGAs and MGBs, it's connected to the bottom. But this is a function of space that's too difficult to get this bar down behind here. The rack and pinion is very much narrower than the MGB by, oh, at least an inch, if not 2 inches. And the angle that the pinion comes through the rack and pinion is like this, whereas on the MGB, it's more like this. So it's on a pretty severe angle. So there's always a lot of wear on the rack housing bushing on the back side, where the pinion starts to wallow around. And crummy steering is a trademark of the MGC. The MGC differs from the MGB not only as front suspension, but the brakes. That's unique to the MGC, as is the engine. The gearbox is pretty much the same as an MGB gearbox. Gear change, different case. The rear axle is about the same style, but the widths change a little bit. But it's the brakes. So the brakes, the engine, and the steering that really make it different. Now the other thing about the front suspension that's very different from all of the rest of our cars is it's a torsion bar front suspension. So instead of having a coil spring, we have a long hardened shaft that winds up, and that takes the place of the spring. Still, there's a consideration for harmonic action, and so we still have to have the shock up here, but it's the torsion bar that makes the MGC so very different. So the body, there's lots of changes in the body to accompany the force that's put on the end of that torsion bar suspension. So this is the MGC. It's impossible to get the sump off with the engine in place, unlike the A or the B, which you can take off. And as usual, I think it's just as impossible to get the gearbox out of the back of the car, just like it's impossible to get the gearbox out of the back of an A or a B with it in place. Oh my gosh, that simple redesign would have made our job as mechanics so much easier. Hey, today is the weekend of Memorial Day 2013, and the NAMGAR GT, I think it's 38, is in Asheville, North Carolina in only a couple of weeks. I'll be there. I just got my MGA out today. It runs like a dream. Heater control valve leaks. I got to fix that. But anyway, for those of you who will be at the NAMGAR event 2013 in Asheville, I'll see you there. Until then, safety fast.